Hey guys, welcome to my page. This is my first official book review. I recently got back into reading after taking a very long break from it. Just life kind of gets in the way. I used to enjoy reading a lot back in the day and just recently decided, you know what? I'm going to start with this book right here, Stephen King, If It Bleeds. I'm not going to lie to you. What first drew me to this book is the cover, the title. It's very enticing. It's a good sized book and it's four stories in one for a good price as well. I think I got it on Amazon, but I've seen it in Walmart too. If you're a Stephen King fan, it definitely isn't one of his old school classics. This book, I believe, was published in 2020. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all four stories just briefly and then give my honest review at the end. So let's get started. The first story in this book is called Mr. Harrigan's Phone. Basically, it's a retired billionaire who's older and his eyesight is going. So he hires this young boy to come read to him. All kinds of stories they read. He pays him very cheaply. The dad always makes remarks about it. Every holiday, he sends him a lottery scratcher with a card. And one of these cards hits some money and he buys Mr. Harrigan a phone. Without giving too many spoilers, let's just say there's a lot of twists and turns, and I would definitely describe this book as supernatural. Um, I don't want to give too many spoilers, but for me personally, I did enjoy this story, and I believe there's a Netflix movie called Mr. Harrigan's Phone based off of this story in this book. The next story in this book is called Life of Chuck. I really don't understand the purpose of the story. I wouldn't really know what category to fit it into. I just know that it is a big cliffhanger. I was reading the story, basically a guy who's on life support. It shows different parts of his life, flashbacks, what other people who are totally unrelated to him are going through at the time that he's hooked up to this life support machine. There's not really much for me to say about it. You just have to read this one in particular and make your own conclusion to the story. I didn't really understand the purpose of the story personally. For me, it was definitely not a favorite of mine. The next one, this one I loved. I wish this story took up more than half the book. It's called If It Bleeds, and it is based around Holly Gibney. So if you've watched The Outsider or read The Outsider or read Mr. Mercedes or End of Watch, it is the same Holly Gibney from those stories. I do believe Stephen King wrote a book recently called Holly based off this character. She's kind of awkward and quirky, set in her ways, but you learn to fall in love with the character. I know I did. And whenever I read another Stephen King book, it will be a book that has Holly Gibney in it. This is definitely supernatural, my favorite in the whole entire book. And it is linked to the other stories that she's involved in some way. Without giving any spoilers, she's very committed to her work. She has friends that love her, family drama, a job that she is just so used to. She's in her routine, shows, all of that stuff. Just not the kind of girl you would expect to have any kind of an adventure in her life, but it is definitely a good story. I would definitely recommend this one for sure. And story number 4, Rat. That's what it's called, Rat. If you could look at the cover right there, you'll see in the cat that the nose on the cat is a rat's face. It is about a writer. He's married with kids. I believe he had a manic episode at one point, which caused him to kind of take a step back. But then the story comes to him one day, and he is committed to going to write this story in isolation. A lot of weird things start happening when he's in isolation. Kind of gives me like sell your soul energy, a little bit of a genie twist in a sense. It was very strange, very weird, very dark. I I don't know. I wouldn't say that it was my favorite. I just kind of got to leave it up to you, to the reader. Everyone's either going to love it or they're going to hate it. But that is the 4 stories within this book. My overall rating of each story, I would say, if I were to go in order of most favorite to least favorite, it would definitely be If It Bleeds. I give that like a 9.5 out of 10. Loved that story. I was sad when it was over. I wish it took up half the book, like I said. And I definitely will be purchasing more Stephen King books with that Holly Gibney character within them. The next one is Mr. Harrigan's Phone. It's very dark and spooky and eerie. I probably give that a 7 out of 10. I did watch the movie before I read the book because that was before I decided to get back into reading. Definitely recommend that. That would be my second favorite in the whole book. My third favorite, it's kind of a toss-up between Life of Chuck and Rat. I I don't love either of them. It's really hard for me to tell you exactly why without spoiling it for you. But I definitely do believe that in spite of how I feel about those 2 stories, that this Stephen King book is definitely worth the money and worth trying to read, especially if you're a huge Stephen King fan. He is very well written. He knows what he's doing with these stories. And like I said, 2 out of the 4 stories I loved, especially the Holly Gibney If It Bleeds story. It took me about, I want to say, 6 weeks to finish this book, which is unlike me. I could usually finish a book within a week to maybe 10 days tops. And that's working full time, being a mom, being a wife, just living life. The story was kind of hard for me to get through. And I think it was because I was bouncing back and forth between different stories, different characters. It was kind of hard to keep up. If It Bleeds probably took me just a couple days to get through, but it was really the rest of them that took longer. Some days I would read 3 pages, some days I would do 20. But overall, I'd probably give the book a decent rating, 7.5 out of 10. Stephen King is very well written, love his movies, like I said. But, it's up to you guys. Give it a try. Read it. It is definitely worth it. And then let me know what you think. Give me your honest opinion. Give me your feedback after you guys read it. I kind of want this to be like a virtual book club. I give you my honest opinion. You give me yours. Do me a favor, hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll be back with more book reviews. Have a good night.